Now, one of the biggest brands in our industry is, of course, Sony, a global monster when it comes to technology and entertainment. But when it comes to car audio, don't make a mistake and think they don't take this seriously because on today's Connected, I'm going to pick their trainer, KRIS Bulla's brain, on all this fancy technology that they claim to have. This is CMA Connected, brought to you by SiriusXM, all about Sony car audio. And it starts now. What's going on, guys, and welcome to another CMA Connected, brought to you by SiriusXM. I'm your host, Ben Wu, and today's Connected, well, yes, of course, we're going to be talking about product, but what I want to get into is the technology. You know, Sony is such a big brand name, and we are blessed to have a brand with the heritage, the pedigree, the technology that Sony has to be able to sell their products to our customers. But they are no slouch when it comes to technology, and they always have been. So we thought we'd take this opportunity to invite their product trainer, Mr. KRIS Bulla, to the studio and pick his brain about some of this said technology. So KRIS, can you give us an overview of what we're going to be chatting about today?
Hey, Ben, I love getting together with you and talking to your audience about Sony, of course, and all of our great products. Today, we're going to talk about Sony's audio technology, especially when conveyed through its mobile ES speakers and our new GS speakers that we recently introduced.
All right, there you have it. We're diving into mobile ES and GS speakers from Sony. But first, a quick opportunity for our partner, SiriusXM, to remind you why it's always a great add-on sale. And when we come back, I got Buell in the studio. Let's talk Sony tech for speakers.
Hi, Paul Truman here with SiriusXM. We reached out to some of our partners in the industry, and here's what they had to say.
I can't say more or enough about just what it means to have our unit working with SiriusXM. It's like we're there now.
The SiriusXM service is something consumers want, right? So it's Paul.
That allows a consumer to listen to either podcasts, entertainment, sports, all at their fingertips. It's all about engagement, and that's what SiriusXM provides.
SiriusXM is a huge component in a vehicle nowadays. Consumers expect that technology to be available both in our OEM system as well as the aftermarket upgrades that they're applying to their vehicle.
Alpine and SiriusXM, through our electronics, are able to offer the consumer on the aftermarket side SiriusXM 360L, which is an expanded platform for SiriusXM. And it's really been a beneficial relationship for us with SiriusXM.
As a dealer, just remember, we don't compete with anybody else. We are absolutely one of the best profitability accessories you can add to any head unit that is SiriusXM ready.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. Let's get into this conversation. KRIS, I'm pretty excited about today's talk. We're talking about speakers, right? So we have our mobile ES speaker line as well as the recently introduced GS speaker line. But before we get into, SKUs and products and sizes and applications, let's talk about Sony as a brand and its commitment to reproducing music as it was intended to be heard. What can you tell us or shed some light on the philosophy behind Sony when it comes to developing these type of products?
Hey, Ben, listen, we've got some of the best acoustic and product engineers on the planet working in our company. And there's really a couple things that we kind of use as core principles when we're designing products, especially when it comes to sound. And those things are here. First and foremost, we want things to be accurate. The old tagline with Sony used to be music as the artist intended. And we still kind of live by that to this day. We want to make sure that we don't color the sound, change the sound. We don't have a sound profile per se. In fact, our sound profile is that we don't have a sound profile. We want the sound to be as accurately, demonstrated in your vehicle as it was recorded in the studio. We want it to be powerful as well. Powerful means emphatic, like emotional. We want the sound to be represented and reproduced, again, as that artist intended, but we want to give you the impact that kind of touches your soul on the inside. They want it to be comfortable. Listening to music in a vehicle can be abrasive or tiresome at times if you don't have it set up correctly or if the products are not adequate for the type of music you listen to. So when we're designing these products, we want to make sure that we're kind of accommodating any type of music listening style and any type of music that's being played back through it. So our products are certainly comfortable to listen to long term.
All right, KRIS, I'm starting to understand the philosophy, and honestly, it's kind of what I expected, no less from Sony. So to get our audience situated, let's break down the exact offering from Sony, because there are two subdivisions. You have your mobile ES, which is your higher level performance speaker range, and then, of course, the recently introduced GS line. I think we should start with the ES.
Hey Ben, yeah, starting with the Sony Mobile ES products is great because that's where we really kind of focused our development several years back as we were redesigning kind of how we looked at a speaker and how it would apply to the vehicle. So all of that technology, that engineering was kind of recreated when we reintroduced that Mobile ES lineup. So that's a great segue there. In terms of mobile, yes, we offer a whole family of different sizes that are available. We have several different subwoofers, two different 12-inch ones at different impedance levels, and one single 4-ohm 10-inch. We have a coax, a two-way, and a three-way version of our 6.5-inch speakers. We have a coax and a two-way version of our 6x9s. And of course, we have a 6x8 for those applications and those vehicles that require that big upgrade in sound, but have that oddball size shape speaker in there for you. In addition to our Mobile ES series, we also have our great sounding, newly introduced Sony GS speaker lineup. So this also offers quite the assortment of products to kind of get your customers situated with great sounding Sony car audio in their car. So we have a 6.5-inch coax and component set available. We have both a 10-inch and a 12-inch subwoofer, and of course a 6x8 and a 6x9 coax speaker available for many different applications.
All right, Chris. So now that we've established the offering within both the mobile ES line as well as the GS line, now I want to get into the nitty gritty because, you guys are boasting a lot of fancy terms, and I want to break it down so our viewers understand what they are, and more importantly, what do they actually do and what are the benefits. So, the first category is materials. This is something that Sony speaks to very often. So, I'd like an opportunity to kind of discuss the type of materials that were specifically either chosen or created for these speakers, starting with the mobile ES line.
Yeah, Ben, this is something that we do that's really unique in our industry. We take a lot of time to really kind of focus on the things that are going into our products. So from a material standpoint, we often spec a new material or a modification of an existing type of material to a kind of a unique perspective for our Sony products. Our Sony Mobile ES speakers, of course, we kind of re-engineered our lightweight cone, and we also kind of introduced a new type of surround on that speaker. But the look and feel of this speaker is pretty unique, right? So that 5-pillar frame around that speaker gives a lot of strength. We needed that strength because this is essentially a plastic speaker. It's a composite polymer that we've created that reduces the resonance of this entire driver motor. So very unique for sure. It's certainly not off-the-shelf parts that a lot of competitors will use just to create a new style speaker. We've taken every inch of this speaker and really kind of engineered it from the ground up. Next up is, I want to talk about our new kind of surround on this. It looks cool. And there certainly are a lot of speakers that have a unique design, a pattern, maybe even some branding or imaging based on that surround. But ours actually means something. So this notched edge surround is serrated in a way where what it does is it keeps that cone moving directly up and down, again, to accurately recreate the sound. Keeping the cone straight and steady as it moves up and reproduces that sound is critical. Anytime that cone gets out of shape or starts to warble on the way up or down, it can color or change the way that sound is perceived by the listener. So we want to make sure we negate that as much as possible. On the right side of the screen, you'll see an aluminum shorting ring. What this does is it reduces any of the magnetic flux that's produced when that speaker is playing back. This is a really big deal because through the vocal range, kind of the mid-range of your music that you're listening to, much clearer, much more profound sounding through a Sony speaker than a competitor's product does not have that feature. So when we're talking about our Sony GS speakers that we've just recently introduced, there was a lot of care taken to like how these speakers would be applied to the market, right? So we reestablished where GS fit in our lineup as kind of a mid-tier speaker. But what we were able to do is take advantage of a lot of the technology that we had just recently gone through in the development cycle of our Mobile ES series products. So on the screen, you'll see our Mobile ES series 6.5-inch coax speaker on the left, and you'll see our GS version of that same speaker on the right-hand side. On these two types of speakers here, you'll see that the image looks very similar. Both parts in both speakers look very identical. The shape of the tweeter, the shape of the tweeter cup, the air diffuser, all of those things were brought directly in from the Mobile ES series because we found that they had a profound performance kind of impact, and also we're able to recreate that sound as accurately as possible. In addition to that, on the GS side, we changed the surround a little bit. So we used a foam rubber surround, which increases and keeps that efficiency high. These will likely be played off of head unit power in a lot of cases, or even a factory amplified system. But we wanted to make sure we maintain that control for that sound accuracy. So we brought in that progressive rate spider at the bottom there directly from our Mobile ES series and applied it to our GS series speakers. You're getting a way over engineered product at the GS level in terms of its price point for sure.
Well, I think it's pretty evident that very much care and consideration has been put into specifically choosing the right materials to do the right job for the right price point of speaker as well. And that's something we always have to keep in regard. Now, when it comes to the performance of these, obviously, overheating and a long-term play at higher volumes is going to be a critical factor because we want these speakers to perform and we want them to perform for a long time. So I'd like for Chris to kind of expand on the type of cooling technology that has been implemented on these drivers.
Thanks, Ben. Yeah, so there's a lot of kind of technology and engineering that goes into every aspect of our speaker, but keeping a speaker cool is very important to the long-term playback and kind of the comfort and enjoyment of the speaker listening session by whoever's using it, right? So on our Mobile ES series, we spent a lot of time creating this vented frame and motor structure. So this makes sure that air is not only moving past just the voice coil itself, but past the entire motor to keep the entire structure cool. I've often said that heat can become the enemy of good sound. If you're listening to an audio system at very high power for a long length of time, maybe you've got a long commute to work or something, then certainly as that speaker heats up, things can get to or past the spec that it's designed for. And when that happens, the sound can certainly change. We've spoken already about how we want to make sure that the sound stays as accurate as possible. So keeping the speaker cool is a primary goal of ours. With our GS series speakers, of course, we used a lot of that same technology in terms of the frame design, a little bit less dramatic design theme on the back of that speaker, but a lot of the same core components to keep the speaker cool. And it also introduces a heat resistant voice coil as well. So in both sets of speakers, you're getting high heat resistance and long-term playback enjoyment.
Chris, I got to give it to you. You've kind of come to the table with all the right answers, and I'm going to keep it going. Got one or two more. The next one is going to be super important because it's great that you have all this technology and materials and all this stuff. But if we can't get the speaker to fit into the vehicles, what's the point? So I'd like to hear a little bit of the thought process when designing these speakers when it comes to fitment on both the ES and the GS speakers.
It's one of the favorite terms that I have in a training is it doesn't do any good to make a great sounding speaker if it doesn't fit into anything. And Sony has certainly created some oddball speakers in the past that were victim to that for sure. We took a long, hard look at our design of our Sony Mobile ES speakers here and the fitment that they could, kind of have in a new vehicle. So we've reformulated how we kind of frame that voice coil inside there to keep both the mounting depth of that speaker shallow-ish and the mounting protrusion of that tweeter shallow as well. There's no impact to any grill that's going in front of those Mobile ES speakers, and you should fit into most applications that require a 6.5, 6x8, 6x9 speaker in most applications. On the GS side, of course, spared no cost on trying to develop the same type of thing. The depth of the GS speakers, of course, is very shallow. 1.875 inches. It should fit into any application that requires a 6.5. We're also still able to keep that tweeter protrusion shallow as well. It's very easy to create a shallow speaker if you just move the whole assembly for that motor up in the frame. But then, of course, you have to deal with the counter side of that, which is that tweeter that could bump up against a grill or something that's going in front of it. And in most applications, you're using a factory grill for these types of speakers. So it's very important for us to keep that very low. All right. So you can see on the picture here in these GS speakers, the depth and the protrusion are both low in both accounts.
All right, Chris, I want to thank you for coming in and really demystifying some of the technology terms that Sony deploys when it comes to describing the performance materials and technologies built into their speakers. One last thing, and I think this is a point that's going to hit home to both dealers and consumers alike. When it comes to the warranty, Sony is not somebody to mess with. They really got your back when it comes to being a Sony customer. Obviously, on the ES is going to be a really nice extended warranty, and I can only imagine that on the GS, because of the price point, maybe it's a little bit less.
Hey, Ben, it's a natural assumption that a kind of a mid-tier product versus the high-end product might have a lower warranty or kind of a less warranty length or whatever. Not the case in our speaker lineup. Both our Mobile ES and our Sony GS speakers have a 3-year warranty. Of course, here in the North America region, US and Canada, that is a field destroy warranty. So retailers, you go through your distributor. Consumers just contact your retailer and they'll get you fixed up. But that warranty tells you that Sony believes in the product we're selling you, and that the retailers who is installing those in your vehicle also believes in our product as well.
That was Sony's global product trainer, KRIS Bula, joining us for a sesh about Sony technology and everything you need to know about their ES Mobile as well as their GS line of speakers. If you want any more information that was covered on any of the products on today's show, make sure you head on over to their official website. We'll put it on the screen right here. And if you happen to be a dealer in Canada tuning in, make sure you connect with the good folks at Gentech International, as they are the exclusive distributor for all things Sony car audio north of the border. My takeaway, if anything, you've learned here that Sony is not messing around when it comes to putting resources, engineering, and all that great science towards developing speakers and everything car audio for that matter. And for me, that means a lot because it is a blessing to have a brand of that magnitude still implicated in our car audio world. These guys are continuously developing and really advancing and pushing the needle forward when it comes to optimizing the sound in our vehicles. Add to that the technology, all the innovations that were covered on today's show, as well as that amazing 3-year warranty. That one there is going to be tough to beat. That's it for the CMA Connected, brought to you by SiriusXM. I'm your host, Ben Wu. Until next time, we connect.